What's up, guys? Fergal BC. Today we are talking about Algorand Foundation's brand new podcast. The first episode of Verifiably Random is live, and some interesting stuff dropped on there. Not as much alpha as I had hoped for, but definitely some interesting things. We're going to look at the CMO's plan for the first 100 days. It's very short, and then we'll look at some question and answers and kind of react to some of the stuff that's said on there. So we'll be sure to check that out. By the way, guys, if you like this kind of content, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Remember, you don't have to smash it. You can just press it gently. The whole point is to bring common sense to crypto, try things out, give you the good, bad, and the ugly. And while we're at it, we want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Non-Fungible Domains. If you want that .algo address, way easier than remembering all those letters and numbers. Check out Non-Fungible Domains in the description below. And we're brought to you by Play to Earn game Fractal Monsters, which is on the Algorand blockchain. If you go to the link below in my description, you can get a free monster to play with now. Plus, plenty of earning opportunities there. So go check out Fractal Monsters. Descriptions for both in the actually links for both in the description below. And without further ado, let's get to this podcast. Okay, so Algorand Foundation just launched the Verifiably Random podcast. They're calling it the Genesis Block. And Mark, John, and Min from the Algorand Foundation are in this. We're going to look at some of this stuff. We're not going to look at all of it, but I do want to check that out. I hadn't really seen or heard a lot from Min lately. She seems pretty cool. And you know, of course, I think we're all excited about the new Algorand CMO. He sounds like he's got some pretty good ideas. It comes from a background of building out, and they kind of talk about this in the episode. He was kind of the guy who helped launch the Google's phone. So Android was still kind of starting out back then, and iPhone had been dominating. So probably a pretty good guy to have as CMO. But let's just why don't we take a look at this? We're gonna skip to some really specific parts. I want to look at his first 100 days. All right, here's the first 100 days. So let's take a look at this.
Let's see. Well, the first one I think right here is good. Algofund.algo. That's pretty fun. Congrats. What does your first 100 days look like? Mark, this is putting you on the spot.
So
Mark, if you could please go day by day, that'd be great.
We got time.
So let me start with like a gigantic disclaimer, and it's actually a disclaimer for all of the questions that are being asked, like specifically to me. It's like I'm less than 10 days in to this adventure, and so I'm not going to have a lot of answers, and there's a lot for me to kind of learn, and so the only thing I'm going to basically tell you is kind of give you my first impressions from being here for 10 days. So that's the important thing to kind of realize. And so, okay, what my 100 days look like? Well, I mean, the first thing I mentioned already, I think it's listen and learn, right? There's so much stuff going on. Like I talked to a lot of the developers, out there. I've been engaging with the community as well. And so the whole idea is like, okay, give me an idea of like the vibe, what's going on. So listen and learn is really my key number one priority in the very short term.
All right. So yeah, I think first off, anytime you start a new job, like your first step is to just start absorbing, start getting a lay of the land. And I think Jessica did that as well. The difference is it didn't seem like she engaged with the community at all, which I think was a huge misstep. And I like that Mark's been doing that. He's been out in public. He's already talking about Algorand. I think that's what you wanted to see from the CMO. Not so much that it has a giant impact, but I think when your leaders, the people who are in charge of marketing, they got to understand the ecosystem, and to understand it, you got to participate in it. So that's what he's doing. I think that's a good thing. I just hope. Well, let's listen on.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a second thing is then I would kind of split things up in like pre-Decipher and kind of post-Decipher. Decipher feels to me like a really big thing that we're focused on. And so pre-Decipher, I think the key thing that I'm going to be focusing on is really the Python launch and like the opening up the funnel for developers. And as John said, to me, this is a really, really big deal for us. And so getting more developers into the ecosystem is critical. And so a lot of the marketing activities is going to be focused on opening up that funnel, getting more developers in, promoting Python on Algorand, getting the bootcamp set up, the hackathons, all leading up to Decipher, where hopefully we'll see a bunch of these Python projects see the light of day. So
By the way, I still don't really fully understand if Decipher is only open to developers. I didn't really get a good response when I asked. I was kind of surprised about that. And I didn't feel like anybody who wasn't a developer really got much of a welcome. The last Decipher that I went to, a lot of us were way less known. I certainly wasn't that well known. I think did I have 1,700 subs at the time, I think, when I went. So that's obviously grown quite a bit. But it sounded like when you went through you have to apply, first of all, and it's not like super apparent. Everything asks about being a developer, what your project is. So when I asked about it or brought it up, Fred Estante said, yeah, we're trying something different this year. So it kind of made it sound like, so I've heard AJ writes crypto, he does a lot of stuff about various cryptocurrencies, but Algorand is one of his favorites, I think. He sounds like he's planning on going, which is interesting. So I guess they're letting him in. Last year, they actually paid some influencers bigger than any of us in the Algorand space to show up. I think they helped the Next Block guys get over there too a little bit. I know I got some money from NIFGen. I didn't take any money from the foundation, nor was it offered. But yeah, I'm kind of curious so there's no way I'm going to Decipher anyway, even if I had the money. I mean, I have the money, but it just doesn't make sense for me to. It's the most expensive time to fly to Europe. So the tickets would be like $1,600 plus hotels and the fees to get in. It's at this point I'm not at this point in my channel's success where I can really justify that. Last year I justified it because like a good chunk of it got paid for, and I don't think anybody's reaching out with the Algorand at the price it is. No one's reaching out to fund my trip there. So let's continue with this anyway.
I think that's a clear focus in the very short term. I think the other thing that we're starting to think about is like, how do we launch node incentivization? That's another really, really big part of the roadmap. I know, John, you're very excited about that. And so we're starting to think about like, how do we position this? How do we message this? How do we get this out? I think it's a really, really big, important launch for the ecosystem. And so that's, I would say, is the second part.
Yeah. I think it's really critical. The consensus incentives technology that we're putting out there, it's again transformative in a different way, of course, because Python on Algorand is transformative for developers. It's transformative for the number of apps we're going to have out there. But consensus incentives is transformative for the decentralization of the network, peer-to-peer. Which is so it's a prerequisite, to build up the pathways in the network before we roll out peer-to-peer, but also transformative in terms of the security, because we want the stake to come from everyone. That's the whole point of pure proof of stake. The idea that I say you, the user out there, is the person who is contributing to the stake. Not just entities that hold large positions.
Yeah, and this was a misstep by Algorand in the beginning, because they thought, and John kind of talked about it when he was on my show, but the initial thought was that people would be so into Algorand that they would just want to support the chain, and they would run these nodes for free, and that really didn't happen. There's far fewer nodes than they expected, and so they're kind of going away from governance and into node incentivization. Not that governance will disappear necessarily, but the rewards will be allocated towards node incentive, which I think makes a lot more sense. It'll probably be a lot more simple for people. It just makes sense overall. So this is something I'm really excited about. I'm glad they're doing that. I think it'll make owning Algorand more useful for most people, because people ask me all the time, like, what's the simple way to stake? And you can go deposit it on Folks Finance, I guess. That's one way to do it. Or you can do this. And I think this will be a good thing. So it's what I do in Cosmos. It's just passive. You don't have to think about it. You're just earning. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. And then I would say the third thing that I really want to focus on, and there's not going to be a lot of kind of visible actions around this in the short term, is really getting ready to do a broader kind of awareness campaign for Algorand and all the goodness that happens on Algorand in the second half of the year. I mentioned earlier about putting developers on a pedestal. Let's talk about all the good things that are happening, right? And so get more proactive about that. And in order to get there, I mean, there's a number of things that need to happen that are kind of behind the scenes type of work in the next 3 months, which is we have to revamp our website. So we have to kind of refresh our brand. We have to kind of tighten our positioning. So there's a bunch of these things that are happening that the community won't see much about because they're happening behind the scenes, but ultimately they will result in stuff becoming visible after Decipher in the second half of the year.
By the way, developers, if you're out there, Mark's pretending that he loves you more than I do, but I love you the most. So funny. And Min, okay, one for you. Let me pick from the list. Okay.
Oh, we're gonna go around the room, huh? I thought.
Yeah. You get to do one. You get to do one for me.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah.
All right. Okay. So Variant 626 at Variant 626 says, "Hey, what are the plans to emphasize the ecosystem growth in payments?" And I think they mean payments specifically. Why aren't we competing with Stripe with the infrastructure that we have?
That's a great question. Actually, that's something I've been asking. Like, even a really simple. Why isn't someone? And I haven't really gotten a great answer for this. There may be some regulatory hurdles that I'm unaware of. But why? Like, I was thinking about when actually going back to Decipher, when NIFGen sponsored me, they sent me the payment in Algorand that I could then turn around to, buy my plane ticket and whatnot. They sent it from Italy to the US, but obviously it's on chain. So it took all of a few seconds and a very tiny fee for me to get all this Algorand, which I could then convert around to, US dollars and whatnot. And of course, going to the bank, now that's the part that takes forever. But why isn't there an app that just makes this really simple for people who don't use the blockchain? This seems like a really easy way to make cross-border payments for people, to bypass Western Union, to get money from one country to the other. There's got to be a way to make it simple for people. You know what I mean? So for non-blockchain users. They're going to bring up a couple of the ones that are going on. So I was actually kind of surprised because there are projects that are just not in the US.
It's a good question. Payments, I think, let's just say that like payments is an area that our tech can really shine in, right? The finality, the speed, the transactions per second. It's like we are one of the only chains out there that can really showcase what blockchain can do for payments.
Mm-hmm.
And so absolutely, this is one of our areas that we are looking into and supporting and figuring out how we can grow more. I'd say the reality is, though, payments, it's like an old industry. It's super entrenched. You have Visa and MasterCard that's been there for decades, and they're a duopoly, right? You have a lot of regulatory kind of pieces that come into it, where it's just like every single thing you have to work on, you have to get different jurisdictions, et cetera. So it's complicated. But it is an area, I'd say we have some really amazing projects that are already building in it. So HisabPay, Mark already was, in fact, I think when Mark and I first chatted, HisabPay was like this, was such an exciting project for Mark to get to know. We had NeoMoon in Latin America. We have projects and we have a lot of support that we want to put towards those projects. In fact, Matt Keller, who runs Impact for us, is running like a payments council, right? So like getting everybody together to figure out how can we help these projects in that space. So there's a lot that we're doing, a little bit like Mark, behind the scenes to support these projects. And even Para, we're looking at a pretty cool new functionality for Para. So there's a lot of stuff that we're doing. And it is an area that we're super psyched about. So I'm glad that Variant called this out as one of the areas for us to think about.
Yeah, so I think we just dropped some alpha there. The way she mentioned that they're working on it on Para. I mean, is there some sort of payment feature coming for Para? Very interesting. I think that's really cool. So payments, I think, are one of the best use cases for crypto, and Algorand especially seems to be set up well for it. And I think that'll make the use case really powerful. So that's stuff I want to see. There's a couple other things they talk about, like quantum computing and stuff. I think that stuff's interesting, but we won't cover it here. You can check that out. I recommend checking it out. It's only got about 800, well, a little under 600 views. I actually listened to the podcast, so I could actually heading out to the mountain bike course. I listened to the bulk of it and kind of took note of some times when I found stuff interesting. I thought that was some of the most interesting stuff from it, but I think it's definitely worthwhile listening to overall. And I think they said every couple of weeks, so definitely worth checking out. But hey guys, thanks for watching this today. Again, Like and subscribe if you haven't already. You can just press it gently. Don't have to smash, yada, yada. Also, I have a link below for this book, which is from some Algorand creators. It's called Across the Sea. I put it right next to my face. It's in focus. And these are NFT and creators on Algorand. It's kind of a cool book. Very pretty. Very pretty. Oop, there we go. I love that. So very nice. I picked one up, and you can check out the link down below. Otherwise, I'm Frugal BC. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in the future.